New numbers out today showing the state of the housing market in West Michigan. The Grand Rapids Association of Realtors saying that the average sale price for a home in June was about $117,000. That is up 2.8% from the average price last June. But sales this past month dropped 27% compared to last year.
On a national scale, bad news for the housing industry tonight. The National Association of Realtors says the number of buyers who signed contracts to buy homes dropped in May to the lowest level dating back to 2001. Economists say it's a sign the housing industry can't recover fully without government incentives. The housing market's the topic of a series that's wrapping up tonight on CNBC, and joining us live with more on that is CNBC real estate reporter Diana Olick. Diana, thanks so much for your time tonight. Boy, this subject matter, it is ripe for the picking. It's a story that's dominated us for the better part of 2 years. What were you guys hoping to examine as you went in and looked at this crisis?
Well, what we're looking at after several years now of covering this crisis is where do we go next? How do you move forward now that the government is really actually pulling out of the housing market? Like you said, we saw pending home sales tank in May because the home buyer tax credit expired April 30th, and we expected to see a drop-off of about 10%. Instead, we saw a drop-off of 30%, really beating the expectations in a bad way. So the question is, where do we go forward in stimulating housing, getting buyers back in, restoring consumer confidence, and of course dealing with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? And those are huge issues. We looked at what the Canadian housing market was doing better than us. We've looked at what to do with the 30-year fixed rate. There are just a lot of options out there on the table that Congress is going to be looking at over the coming months.
Diana, what you brought up Fannie and Freddie, what do you think? Too broken to be fixed?
Well, at this point, they're just too big to stay the way they are. Government has got to get out of Fannie and Freddie. They are bleeding cash to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. The question is, when these organizations, which really support the entire housing market right now, in fact, all mortgage originations are either going through Fannie and Freddie or the FHA. You've got to get the private investors back into the market. And how do you do that without taking the market down with you if you get rid of Fannie and Freddie? What you have to do, a lot of experts are saying, is break them up slowly, privatize parts of them, but keep that government backstop there so that investors have the confidence to get back into the market.
Diana, you also brought up the 30-year mortgage. Boy, that's a staple of this country. Is it still good for America?
Well, it depends on who you ask, as with everything else. We saw mortgage interest rates on the 30-year fixed in the past week hit a record low, which is supposedly going to be great for housing, except that we also saw mortgage purchase applications hit a new low as well. So people are not buying, even though that interest rate is very low. Now, other countries don't use the 30-year fixed the way we do. There are adjustable rate mortgages. There are mortgages that have safety nets in them as well, but it costs more in other countries to buy a home, and you also have to have more skin in the game in places like Canada, which we examined, and perhaps that would keep more buyers away from biting off more they can chew, which is really what happened in this market. And what brought down the housing market was people getting into mortgages that they really couldn't afford. So the question is, do we continue on with the 30-year fix? Do we look at other kinds of products that perhaps have adjustments but also safety nets that require more money down? Again, these are all questions we're going to be looking at as we watch Congress and the market itself, the industry, try to change and restore housing in this country.
Fascinating stuff. Diana Olick with CNBC. We look forward to seeing your special, Defending the American Dream, the Housing Fix. And that series wraps up tonight on CNBC. Thanks for your time, Diana.